What's up, YouTube? In today's video, we're going to be looking at HttpClient and the correct way to use HttpClient in your applications. Now, the way I'm doing this is by way of a code review. So I'm going to go through the issues with the code. I'll show you the original code, talk about the issues that I see with that. Some of them are just code review issues. Some of them are to do with HttpClient, primarily. Most of them are. And then show you a solution to these problems of what is the best way to do this. All of the code that I present here will be available for you on my GitHub. I'll put a link in the description below. What I'd like you to do is follow along. So download the code right now and then follow along. And when I say, pause the video at certain places, you want to pause the video and then look at the actual code on your end for that specific class only. So you can spend as much time as you need. You can scroll up and down. There's only 3 methods here. So it's not like a massive class. But, take your time, see if you can find some of the issues that I'm going to talk about, and then continue on with the video to see if you found or highlight some of those issues or all of those issues to start with, right? So anytime I think you should pause, not only should you pause, look at the source code on your machine so you can scroll up and down and examine it to the extent that you need to examine it to then come out with a result or a comment or whatever, right? Okay, so let's get started. So let me introduce to you the solution itself before we move any further here. So this is actually what I call what's wrong with this code. So there's www.tc HttpClient, and there's the original code that was part of a code review that I was doing at one point. And then the second project in the solution is the fixed code. And the third is the service, because these things are actually requiring a service. So what I did is I built a very simple service. It doesn't do much. It just responds to the requests that the HTTP clients are making in these projects. So you have a way to work with this stuff independently. And if you want to rewrite or refactor the whole thing, that service should help you make sure you're kind of on the right track. So it's not a full-blown service, but it's just endpoints that function. So that this solution is standalone. So you should be able to get the solution, run any of the projects against that web server, and it should just work, all right? So in the HttpClient original project, there is a class here that you want to look at, which is the authentication token provider, all right? You don't want the 2, I just want the 1. So there are 2 classes. One is, if you look at the names, let me also just zoom in here so you can see that. So I'm talking primarily about these 2 classes. They're the same name. There's a original, the one that was kind of what I got in the code review request. This one has my comments in line. So when you want to start to kind of understand what the issues are, look at the sort of version 1, if you will, not version 2. Version 2 has then the to-do items at every point in the code that highlights all the issues. Of course, that gets a bit too confusing, but there's a lot of issues. This little code here, and I'll show you the code now. So this is the code I want you to look at, the work order service auth token provider, not the V2, but just the auth token provider. And it's got these 3 methods. So that's it. It's got these 3 methods: create work order, which is this one, log in or get access token, and log out. And in order to create a work order, you need to first get the access token, then you use that access token to create the work order. And once you're done, you log out. That's the sort of sequence, if you will. So this is the original class and the code that was provided. So I'm going to show you initially just the create work order method here. If you want now, you can pause here to look at this method to get a sense of what may or may not be wrong with this method. So okay, I'm assuming you want to move forward now from here. I will expand this method here. And you can take a look at this method here. So I'll wait a bit here so you can pause. Okay. And then this method here, which is the get access token method. And I'll wait here for you so you can pause. All right. So I'm assuming you've looked at the source code at the different methods in this one class and no cheating. And you've made notes of all the things that are wrong. Now, the surprise of this thing is, now a lot of this is to do with programming with intent. So that's a whole series. And of course, this video is a part of that series. There are a lot of things that I talk about in that programming with intent, or PWI as I call it. And so it's not kind of come out of thin air, right? This is how the people I work with most times are working like this. I'm training them, we're going through this process. And of course, that PWI thing, if you remember the very first video, it's a learning process, not just me, but the teams I work with, the people that I work with. There could be suggestions that, they give me that I incorporated as part of PWI over the years. It's just PWI, right? So you might find some of these things to be like, oh my gosh, I don't think so kind of thing. So that's fine, right? This is how I've been programming for many, many years now. And for me, it's natural. For me, it's quite normal. I also see the problems, like they kind of jump out at me. And I know from experience that people who are learning this stuff, it takes them a while to remember the thousands of things that you need to remember from a PWI standpoint, from a programming with intent standpoint, right? So, but nonetheless, the issues I'm going to highlight to you are, broadly speaking, 3 categories. One are like just code review things, namings, stuff like that. The next is bugs. These are all bugs. I don't care how you dice it. There's a bug, right? So there's a problem. And then the third is design issues. So most times, code reviews and design reviews are kind of going hand in hand, depending on who you're working with. If I'm working with a senior, we've probably worked offline meaning not in the code, but generally I've given a guidance or something. And so we're on the same page. When I get the code, I'm doing a design review / code review, right? So it's kind of both. So, okay. So there are, how many items, how many issues do you think there are? Broadly speaking, there are about, let me show you here. So if you look at the version 2 code, I have a bunch of items I've listed out here. So from a general PWI perspective, there are 12 issues. From a bugs perspective, there are 6 bugs. And from a design perspective, there are 11 issues. Now, these are literally the one time that I see that. That's to say that sometimes things are repeated in the same issue, the same mistakes, the same issues are repeated in the same code many times. I've only listed it once. So if you look at the to-dos here in this file, and you can look at it by looking at your task list here, there are over 50 to-dos for this one code. It's the same code now. It's now just got cluttered, if you will, with all the to-dos. So which is why I didn't want to show you this part, just because it just gets too confusing to see. But I'm going to now go through these issues here one by one. And I'm going to try and explain to you some reasoning ideas that I might have. Sometimes maybe if things are, it's okay if it's not, but it'll be nice to have kind of thing. All right. Okay. So classes should be internal. Yes, all my classes are internal. There are very few classes that need to be public, right? So you need to make those choices. Which classes truly need to be public, accessible from outside this assembly. Right? And by this assembly, I mean, if it's some other assembly, you're not sharing everything. Like typically in business applications, when you make your classes, you're not the one sharing anything. Where you might be consuming other libraries, NuGet, third parties, whatever, but you're not the one sharing. So don't share. Make it internal. If you need to share within your own assemblies, you can share internals within your own assemblies, but you don't need to make them public to make them accessible to anyone that has access to your DLLs. Class should be sealed. Same thing. All classes in my world start internal sealed. In fact, if I were to create a new class, let me just do. No, I can just actually do it. So in this project, I'm going to create a new class. And I just say, class 1, right? It starts off internal sealed, right? Now I modified the Visual Studio item template, as I call it, to make that happen, where anytime I say new class from anywhere in Visual Studio, it's going to say internal sealed. That's how it starts. All classes start their lives as internal sealed. I'm just going to delete that class. Okay. And back here. Okay. Then these are all PWI design. If you can see here, the to-dos. Oh, by the way, so something happened in Visual Studio. I don't know at what point, 2019, 16.23 or something, right? We have the ability to define our own custom task items. like to-dos, we can define our own. So I do that. I got a PWI, I got a PWI. Let me just show you. So that is here. Yeah, sorry there. So normally there's to do. I've added PWI bug, PWI. So that's just normal priority. PWI bug is a higher priority, and PWI design is a higher priority. The idea is that when you have these defined as your custom task list tokens, you could, instead of doing it with a to do, what you really can do is this. And you can say PWI, and that's it. And it shows up in the task list here as an item. But in Visual Studio, that's not working. For 2019, that's not working. It used to work in 2019, but at some point, some version of 2019 stopped working. So I put to-dos there so you can see them. So if you went to your task list, you'll see all these items here, and you can navigate to each of them by clicking here, or just F8 will cycle you through each item in your entire solution. And that's what I normally do when I'm looking at issues. But okay, going back here, we have this PWI design is another class name. Is this correct? Now, to me, this is a gateway, right? It's allowing me, assisting me, is giving me the ability or capability to talk to some service that in this case is the work order service. And so that's, if something is helping me talk to that service, then that's a gateway, right? At least in my systems, that's a gateway. So, and of course, in the broader scheme of things, this project has gateways too. It's not like it doesn't. So when I see this problem, I'm going to say, that's not the right name for this. This needs to be called gateway something, right? I'm not work order service auth token provider, which is not, right? It's more than that. So that's that. It's a design issue here. Now, a lot of the PWI plus design. So these top ones here are just normal PWI things, and then the bottom three over here are design. Right? So we look at public method should not be virtual, which is a design guidelines, framework design guideline. I've been following it for years. There is some sort of a security risk associated with public methods that are virtual. And so they recommend not having public methods that are virtual. What they recommend is having a public method that's not virtual with the name, whatever name you want, and then that method calling a protected abstract method with the same name, but with the suffix of core, right? So do it that way. So that's one issue here. But the second issue that there's no need for. So one says you should not have public methods that are virtual, right? That one. And then don't invent names. I have these sayings in PWI. I'll say don't invent names, or we don't expose our privates, or need to know basis. These are all phrases I use in my team. So that one phrase is kind of like a name of a design pattern, explains a whole lot of things. Right? So I just say need to know basis. That means something to people. I don't explain the whole thing over and again. But here I am sort of repeating myself. So don't invent names means something. What it means is don't invent a name of an argument, parameter, or a local variable. Give it the name of the type itself. Camel case, but give it the name of the type. There's no need to try and invent a name, right? Now, unless there's a collision or for whatever reason you need that specificity, then I would say you need to name it. Otherwise, there's no need for it. Like if it has a business meaning, the thing should have already had a name. Let's say there's a class that's a business model, then it has a proper name to start with. You don't need to invent a name for it, right? If it's a thing like an HTTP client, well, if you only have one in this class, then just call it HTTP client. Right? There's no need to invent a name for it. So if you name things correctly, class names and method names and such, then the variables and arguments, parameters, they would automatically be named exactly what you want them to be, because you name everything else the way you want them to be. Right? So there's no need to invent another name. If you find yourself, each time you create an instance of some class, giving it a different name, then you potentially name the class incorrectly. Right? So especially if it's your class, you then change the name of the class. I mean, if you always consider it to be something else in your methods as local variables, you give it a different name, then maybe the class is named incorrectly. And assuming you might want to change it there. So don't invent names just means use the same names. Unless there's a collision, if you need two HTTP clients, one going to this, one going to that, endpoint or service, then you might want to call them specifically as per that. What are they going to, or what are they doing exactly? But if there's no collision of some sort, just call it, leave it one, the way it is, the normal type name. So what I'm saying here is this guy is the type work order settings, then call this work order settings. Why are we inventing names, right? I think it's hard. I mean, Visual Studio will actually assist you. It will tell you that the argument name is going to give you a hint. Let me see. Let me show you what I mean. So if I look at here, so if I, there it is, see? So why fight it? Just if you work with Visual Studio instead of against it, which is what I've been doing over the years. As I find Visual Studio coming up with features and such, I alter the way I program to sort of fit in with what Visual Studio is doing. So I'm not fighting, I'm not going against the grain, if you will. I'm going with the flow, and you get more productive that way. So, that's what I do. It's just, I used to, change all kinds of settings in Visual Studio. Today I can get out of the box, install Visual Studio. I'm happy. It just works exactly the way I want it, because that's what I've gotten used to, right? So, but this is the feature there. Why not use it, right? Plus you would need to, I'll just undo it, since I don't want to sit and modify this code. You'll get confused when you see the, right? Okay. The next one is need to know basis. What that means is this thing over here. Now, it's not truly the case in this specific case, but I want to kind of call it out as a thing, because it's very, very common. The need to know basis says if the method is asking for some information, it should ask for only the information it requires, and that's it, nothing more, right? Nothing more. Need to know basis. Conversely, if you're sending a method an argument, you should be concerned, am I giving this thing too much information, or too little, of course you'll complain, but am I giving you too much information? And the metaphor I use for that is, imagine you've gone to a store and you're buying something in the store, you've gone to the counter to pay for it. Let's say it's $100. So the storekeeper says it's $100. Do you take out your wallet and give the storekeeper your wallet, or do you give them the $100? Right? That's the difference. If you are giving information to another method, you should be concerned that method is asking for too much information. Right? Conversely, as a good method design, you should be designing methods that ask for exactly what they need and nothing more. So in the case of like a DTO here, let's say this DTO had 10 arguments, and it needs username, password, and base URI, right? So you want to make sure that you're only sending this method the information it needs and nothing more. So if this thing has more information than those three properties, then you need to change that. Some people ask me, so are you going to create a whole, let's say this, the method needs, let's say, 7 properties of the main class that, let's say, has 20 properties, just as an example, right? So the class, the work order settings has 20 properties then this method needs 7 of those. Are you going to have 7 arguments? No, I'm going to define a new class that has just the 7 arguments. And then this method will ask for that new class. And then in the call side, I would have to map from A to B and send it in. Is that too much of work? Sure, but it's way better than having to deal with this nonsense, because what happens here is you don't know what all this method is using, and you don't understand the implications from the call side. Like, what could it be possibly doing with these 20 arguments, with these 20 properties, right? It's harder to test, it's harder to manage, it's harder to wrap your head around things. So keep it to the bare minimum. And if it means you have to define another class just because, one's got these 7 arguments, the other one's got 20 properties, that's fine. It's a one-time thing. It's not a big deal, right? Creating a class in Visual Studio is not that big a deal. So just do it. That's what I've learned over the years. And of course, in the future in C# 9, we'll get the data types, data class. I don't know what they call it, records, right? Delphi used to have records. So I guess Delphi is still hanging in there in C#. Yeah, so records, and those will make it even simpler to define classes, just one line, right? With the sort of a constructor arguments. Range. That's it. Yeah. So get used to that idea. I think that's the best way to go about this thing. All right. Then this one here says that this method is the only one that needs to be public, whereas you got get access token that's public, and you got logout that's public, create work order. So everything is public, but really, the way this thing works is, and this is what I mean by the design, right? So this is not like necessarily a code review. You won't know that unless you know how it's being used. In order to create a work order, you need to log in or get access token you need to create the work order, and then you need to log out. It's part of creating a work order. It's a sequence of steps that you require to do in order to create a work order. That doesn't mean that those two other methods need to be public, just the one, right? Which also means another thing that comes to me with regards to this stuff is, in my case, for every public method of a class, I'm striving to make that public method the orchestrator. In order to create a work order, you first have to log in, let's call it. That's another comment there, that get access to, which we call login. Then you create the work order, and then you log out. It's a sequence of steps, which means the create work order should be doing orchestration. So that anyone looking at that implementation says, oh, I see. In order to create a work order, you do these 3 steps. That's it. I don't want to see the clutter of the code. Right? I just want to see the orchestration. Make it simple. Let me read the thing. I said, tell me a story. That's how you tell me a story. You go step, step, step. That's it, right? Sorry, I'm jumping all over the place, but that's the nature of code reviews, right? You can't explain them in isolation. Right, no need for virtual, so this public method is virtual. Get access token is in this name, essentially a login, so I think they should be called a login. Even though you're getting back an access token, you're really doing a login. It's easier to understand. You first do a login, then you do a create a work order, then you do a logout. Right? Okay, so that's the issues with this method. There are actually in to-dos inside as well, so I forgot about that. So these were just kind of at the method level. Now let's go inside here into these methods here. Okay, so leave blank lines. This, I think the original was such that there's no blank lines here, so it becomes difficult to read. Right? And of course, if you're using Sonar and other things, they'll ding you on this right away. So if you're not using Sonar, I'll probably be making a video soonish on installing and sort of using Sonar on the local machine so that you can connect or use Sonar on your local machine to highlight some issues and stuff. It's pretty cool if you have the right rule set. The problem with Sonar is that some people kind of go overboard with the rule set, and I don't necessarily agree with all the rules that people think they should apply. But I think the default rules of Sonar out of the box are perfectly fine, barring a few that I will turn off just because I don't subscribe to that kind of thing. But it's a good thing to learn. Like a Sonar Lint, if you don't use Sonar Lint on Visual Studio, you should be using Sonar Lint. The FXCop, FXCop code analyzers and Sonar Lint analyzers. You can install those in your either project wide or Visual Studio wide. Use those tools, decide which rules you want to turn on and off, and start to sort of form the habits. Because you won't see any issues with this code. So Sonar, in my mind, Sonar is a subset of my rules, but the right rules, if you will. Yeah, I won't go into the details, but I'll be making a video so you can use Sonar on your local machine and kind of, improve your code that way. All right. All right. So going back here, let's look at the code now. So leave blank lines, which is understandable. Don't invent names again. Why is, this called client? Why can't it just be called HttpClient? So don't invent names. You're creating a new instance of a client each time this method is called. So each time you call get access token, you're creating a new instance of HttpClient. That's a big problem. All right. So now coming to HttpClient, you cannot or should not be creating new instances of HttpClient every single time through the lifetime of your application, every time a method is called. So typically, you would have a class that either caches an instance of HttpClient, or in .NET Core, you can use the HttpClient factory. It's a bit, I think, unnecessarily convoluted, but you can use that and have the factory do the caching. Right? So basically what's happening with the factory in .NET Core is you identify, I'm keeping it simple, you identify HTTP clients by name or by type. You can define your own custom types, and then it maintains a cache of that. Right? So you ask it each time, it'll give you back the same instance, or maybe it'll create a new instance depending on what's going on at that moment in time. As a result, you're reusing the client HTTP client instance. The key aspect is reusing the HTTP client instance. Whether you do it yourself or use the factory, doesn't matter. Make sure you do it though, right? Okay, so that's that. And so what's happening here is, and across all these methods, they're each creating their own instance. That means just in order to create a work order, you have 3 HTTP client instances being created here. That's ridiculous. That's just too much. And they're not even being disposed, which is the other problem. Not only creating multiple instances here, I call out the bug here, they're not being disposed. So these are coming under the bug thing, the HTTP client. Shouldn't create multiple of those, and the fact that you're not calling dispose on them. So these are bugs. Now, I forgot to mention, the code actually works exactly how you expect with a minor issue. And I want you guys to figure out the issue. I'm not going to fix it in the code. I want you guys to figure it out, right? Or when I show you, you can see it and then comment on seeing. It's a very small issue. And maybe after I finish this methods thing, I'll show you the function of the application so that, those who want to download the code can see how to work the application, the solution, and then continue on with the code review. Right. Then base URI. So what's happening here is every time you call some method, right, you're providing the base URI that's part of the settings, your work order settings. And that's also not a good name, by the way. This work order settings is not correct. So what I'm suggesting here is that the HTTP client has a way to set the base URL in the HTTP client itself. And then for every post, get, whatever you're doing, you just need to provide it with that part, right? This constant concatenation going on is not really required, right? So that's what I mean by that. Don't invent names again. This request, this should be called what? It should be called HTTP request message. I find it useful that the variable name is the type name. Now, some people might say, well, that's Hungarian notation or whatever. That's not Hungarian notation, but that's what I'm saying. That's what I mean when I say don't invent names. It's got the type name, HTTP request message, then call it that. Like, how much time does it take to type in HTTP request message once? After that, the ID will help you, right? So that's what I'm suggesting there. And then these are disposable also, but there's no place that these are being disposed. Now, some of these things are repetitive issues, right? And every method is the same problem again and again. So that's what I meant by the items here. Like when I say HTTP client should not be created each time, it's not a one-time issue. That issue occurs 3 times here, right? If you're not doing this thing, that same issue is occurring 3 or 4 times in this class here. So the top level are just the kinds of issues, and the to-dos are highlighting the issues at the in situ, if you will. All right, then we have, so that's disposable, but it's not being disposed. The HTTP client is disposable, that's not being disposed, and don't invent names. Then again, leave a blank line here. Don't invent names again. That is an HTTP response message. So this is called rec. This is called response. I mean, even if you're not naming things correctly, maybe even if you don't follow my sort of way of naming things, which is don't invent names, at least be consistent, right? If one is called response, then call the other request. You can't call one rec and the other one response. That doesn't make sense to me, right? Follow names that you define, but make sure there's consistency. So everyone on the team is calling it the same thing, and everywhere in the same class or the same system, you're calling the same thing. And that's why rather than trying to figure out what did I call it the last time in that project or in that class, don't invent names. It's easier. Just call it what it is. Simple. All right. So then, sorry, I'm going back and forth here, distracted. Okay. So the other thing is that's missing in all of the awaited methods is configure await false. Now, configure await false, as I mentioned over here, is you need it if you're not in .NET Core. In .NET Core, use it anyways. It doesn't really matter in .NET Core. There is no real separate context. So you don't have that issue. Therefore, you don't have the need to keep saying, configure await false. But if it's a library, like a .NET 2.1 standard library, then make sure you put in .NET Core, the configure await false after every async method as well for library classes, things like that. So that this issue is there everywhere. We do an awaitable method like here as well. The other big problem here in this debug, as you see, these are called, like some of them are bugs, some of them are just design, and some of them are just PWI. Right, so this is a PWI issue, this is a PWI bug issue, this is a PWI design issue, and so on. Right? Each time you do a send, when you get back a response, HTTP response message, you need to ensure that message has a status code on it. If you don't check the status code and just assume it's going to work, it's going to blow up in your face, right? So that's not the way you want to program. After every time you do a send of some sort, post, get, put, push, whatever, you're going to get back a response and look at the status code of the response. And there's a method on the response, HTTP response message called ensure success status code. At least use that. In the code I show you, we'll be using another sort of custom method that does that, but you at least use that much, right? And then do that, kind of make sure it's okay before you move forward. Over here, it's just assuming everything's going to be okay. So it's reading the string, even though the string may not be what you want or expect to come back here. So this get access token returns, of course, a token here. Just before I forget that, if you look at this thing over here, in the create work order method is calling get access token and it's calling it access. This is what I mean by consistency. If you don't have an idea, if you don't have a convention for naming things, you're going to just every single time invent your own thing. Here you'll call it access, there you'll call it token, over there you'll call it access token, because you're not following a convention. So I'm not saying you should follow my convention or my, don't invent names thing. I think that's the simplest because you don't have to invent anything. What's the type? What's the method calling? It's called get access token. What do you think I'm going to call the variable? Access token. It says get access token. Now, if I don't like to call something access token, I will rename the method to something else. And whatever it says get XYZ, I'll call this XYZ. Having a consistency in which the entire team names thing is way better than each one not only coming up with their own names every single method, but in every single project, and every single person has their own idea. That's a bit much. So the simplest solution is, instead of inventing names, use the names that are there. That's simple. All right. Then we have from a design issue so now if you haven't seen, by the way, I'm going to put a few links in the video up here. There's for the gateway, I'll put a link up here. For the levels of abstraction, I'll put a link up here. And if you haven't watched those videos, please watch them, because this video is kind of bridging across these two topics, if you will. Right? So that might help you in case you're not sure what I'm saying. When I say levels of abstraction, I've explained that in that video. And what is the roles and responsibilities of the gateway, I've explained that as well. So, okay, I'll give you briefly what I mean here. So this is the create work order method. I've actually used this class. It don't have the clutter. Okay, there it is. Create work order method. That's what we're looking at. Right? As I said, in order to create a work order, there are three things: login, get an access token back, create the actual work order providing the access token, 3, logout. That's it. 3 steps. Why all the clutter? Like, I can't understand what's going on here. It's just a whole lot of clutter. And this is a public method. So I would like to see the orchestration. Now, if we call that logout, that'll be cool, right? It's logout. So you log in with the access token, right? Then all of this here is create work order, and then there's logout, right? So if we were to refactor this like that, then I would see proper levels of abstraction. What I mean by levels of abstraction is that this method is at a certain level of abstraction. You don't see the HTTP kinds of things in here. This method also is a separate level of abstraction from this method. This is also, you don't see all this stuff here. And then next thing you know, you're doing all this stuff here that's going down the weeds with regards to HttpClient and JSON convert and string content and media type. It's just, a lot of detail. This is much lower level of abstraction than this method is at when you see something like that. And you're not seeing all those details. So you would need to extract this into another method so that now you see 3 steps. You see, let's say login, create work order, logout. Done. Don't look at all this. This is not correct here, but it's working, but it's not correct. Okay, let's look at the sort of the fixed version of our gateway. Okay, let me actually show you how this thing works. So now, remember the solution has a service and a client. And I know a lot of people don't know how to run let's say the service before the client. So in case they normally will start 2 instances of Visual Studio and just run the service first and then run the client and stuff. And that might be beneficial if the service takes too much time to spin up. You could have a separate instance that just stays running. You're not developing that service. You're just using it as a way to bounce against. That's one way to do it. I'll show you another way here in Visual Studio. We go into the properties for the solution. Start a project. You can say, normally I think it says single or current selection. I forget which one is the normal. You can say multiple and pick the ones you want. So here I'm saying I wanted to start the work order service, and I can also arrange the order of the sequence. right? These can be moved up and down. So it says start this one first and then start the original one. So basically it's going to start the service and then start the original console app. So it's starting the service part and then it's going to start this console app. All right. So in the console app, we got this and we use this thing here. This is just basic information here. Then we create a new instance and we call this. And I've got on the top, it says original version and then the work order ID. So let's run this and see the output. Right. So now in case you want to zoom in here. Now this is seemingly the correct output. In fact, what happened here is you write your tests to include this output. This output actually is incorrect, even though it looks correct. It's a subtle issue. And I'm going to leave this bug in there. And I think both the versions have it. I want you to fix it. Right? I'll provide the solution in here, but again, I'll say pause, then I'll delete the solution, and then you can fix it. All right. So the bug here is that these little double quotes here are not supposed to be there. This is not the value. The entire value includes the double quotes, and that's not correct. Nice. The value is supposed to have no double quotes around it. And that's the subtle bug. Let's set this up to run the other project. I'm going to set this to start. You can also have them both running, so they both spin up. So that's also doable. You don't have to turn one off and turn one on. Run that application. Yeah, they both have the issue. So I'm going to leave it here. As I said, I want you to fix it. See what it is. If you already know what could be the problem, you can put that in the comment. Or either ways, you can pause it. You can look at all the code yourselves and then tell me what it is. Okay, now the fixed version of this gateway is in this solution. I call it HttpClient fixed. And it's got a little extra for folder structuring here. It's what I use in my system. So this is just a portion. The gateway is not the part of my system. There's a whole system before the gateway typically. But there's a certain folder structure I follow. So I've made that in this project as well. And so the gateway will be found under services, in this project here. I think let me zoom in. That's the fixed. There's a services folder here. Expand that. You can have multiple services, say, in your applications. And so I'm working with the work order service. And then everything to do with the work order service is in this folder. Right? So the gateway, don't worry about the service agent. That won't be there. The mapper, the resource models. That resource models are models that the service requires. These are not your models. These are models of the service. So I keep them separate and I don't want them leaking into my system. In fact, there's a PWI issue in the other code, the original code that says icky leaky, I call it. Icky leaky. Or some people just call it leaky API. I call it an icky leaky. It's also loosey goosey. Right. So that's the resource models and then the gateway. So we want to look at this gateway. That's the kind of the fixed up version of this. So it's called the work order service gateway. So that's the proper name. It's implementing iDisposable because the HttpClient is cached in this class and this HttpClient is an iDisposable. So therefore this one will need to be iDisposable, which says whoever's using that class will need to be iDisposable. That's iDisposable, right? It kind of goes up like a virus. Probably not a good idea to talk about viruses in software these days, but that's what I see. The async kind of comes down and iDisposable goes up. They both the entire call chain gets altered. Okay, so I won't go into the details. Please examine this code properly. I just highlight some of the things besides the fact that I've fixed things. The constructor gets the work order settings, right? As opposed to if you look at this is the original. the work order method already gets the settings. Then the access token gets the settings again, and the log out apparently doesn't need it. I'm saying that design should not be the case. So only the settings are required by the gateway's constructor one time. And without that settings, the gateway is not working. So that at the construction, you can give it the settings. And it's not called work order settings because work order settings is not quite work order settings. Is that the settings to create the work order? Or is it settings for the service? Right? So if you look here, it's called work order service settings. So some subtle name changes have also occurred in the solution part. So it's the fixed project called fixed, or the suffix of fixed is the sort of the fixed version of the thing, right? And in the constructor, I'll create an instance of the HTTP client. And when I create an instance of the HTTP client, I set the base URI to the URI that comes from the settings. So this HTTP client instance is always going to be going to that service. Therefore, the base URI is set to that endpoint or that service's URL. And then every method can add on its own little tag on the ends of the URL. But the base URL doesn't have to be repeated over and over. Once you set a base URL, you'll always assume there's that prefix, if you will, to your suffix of the URL. All right, so just take these things out of the way, constructor and the create, that's not important. And then I have a few methods here. Okay, so of course, you can see right away there's many more methods, but I've left this in this class because it's the only, let's say you're starting out, this is the only gateway in your system. The moment you have more than one gateway, you will refactor this into another class, or some of these functionalities into another class, and I'll show you what that is. All right, but for now, I leave it in one class. I don't add on 10 or 10 more classes right off the bat. This capability is only required in this gateway. So that's it. I leave it here. I'm happy with it. I have no problem leaving things in a class if it's not required anywhere else. I'm not a big fan of having a clutter of classes, one class with 2 methods, another class with 3 methods, just because. But that doesn't mean that I will leave it that way if I find that there are other classes that could use the same functionality, right? So I wait. I don't do it right off the bat. So in some cases, I also do right off the bat in case it's just too complicated, the stuff. It just needs to be out in a separate class. So for now, to keep it simple, actually, I've left it in one class, and I'll explain. The create work order is, of course, this required in this class. This is the gateway. The create work order. So these three, barring the constructor, these three are the main methods that are required. And of course, the create work order is only public method. Everything else is private, and most of it is private static. That's cool. The others are, and this ensure success is probably required as well inside this class. These other methods are sort of helper methods, if you will, in that they are dealing at a very low level with the HTTP client, with streams and media types and all that. Typically, in a normal system, I have many services, therefore many gateways, which means you abstract out the HTTP parts into a service agent. Again, you might want to look at the gateway design pattern video here. I talk about this over there. The HTTP specific things are moved out. I've abstracted down into a service agent. I call it service agent HTTP. And the gateway parts, which are more businessy, if you will, to do with that business and the service and the business. Like the gateway is the mediator between your business system and that service. But does the gateway have to be cluttered with all the nuances of the protocol, the HTTP part? Or can that be abstracted into a separate service agent? And especially when you have multiple services, then that commonality can be pushed out into another class called service agent. And I have an example of that in this code base as well. And you can take a look at that. That's the sort of the V2 version of it. So the V2 version of it uses the service agent. The V1 version of it, or the first fixed version, does not use the service agent, but the second one does. So you can look at how to do that in the source code. I'll introduce it a little bit here, but not go into the details of that. So these methods could potentially be abstracted or extracted from this class. And these methods will be the only ones in this class. So I want to show you the details of that, but essentially what it's doing is it's doing the orchestration. So if I look at over here, I can say, oh, look at that. So first I have to map, and this is the big thing with gateways, right? This is the model that is a part of my business, the work order for create, let's call it. Whereas the gateway requires another model called work order for create request. the leaky, icky part of the original source code that I received, which was here, is that this create work order is asking the business side, who's calling the gateway, something in the business side. It's asking the business side to provide it with a work order create request. That means it's leaking the services models into your business system. The gateway's job is to abstract you from that. The gateway's job is to work with your API, your models, and do the mapping to talk to the service rather than the other way around, right? So that's what that is. So that this is the business model, and this work order create request is the services model, right? So that's the services model. So the gateway will map from that to that. They may or may not be the same. Maybe property names are different, fewer, lesser, more, whatever. That map will handle all of that. Then call the login, then call the post for the create, and then call the logout. Now you could argue that this portion also should be abstracted to another method, just called create work order. And I have done that in the version 2 of this class, which I'll show you next. But that's the basic orchestration. It's still a little cleaner than before. And of course, it's not called get access token. It's called login. You're not sure what this is doing exactly. And then there's a logout, right? So you're not quite seeing the orchestration here. And then there's the other methods here. The ensure success method is a whole blown out method here in this class. And it's doing a whole bunch of things. And if you remember earlier, I said that when we do talk to, let's say if I look at the login method here, after every send or post or whatever, I call ensure success. So this is not the built-in ensure success on the HTTP response message. This is my own extension, not extension, just method in this gateway that asks for the bare minimum information. And then based on that, we'll determine what exception to throw. So you might want to look at this method's implementation. This is very specific to this service. It doesn't actually, the service I built doesn't throw the errors, but this is what I had received for the code review, and it's functional, but of course I don't have an endpoint to give you that is functional, but you'll see how that's programmed. So we have our own custom ensure success method that is called after every post or get or push, whatever, right? Every time you do a post. In the post async here, it's done inside this method itself, ensure success, right? Those some of the bugs. Then this class is disposable, so it does the dispose and ensures that everything is disposed. So we only have one instance of an HTTP client that is disposed, and all these are disposable. So the HTTP response message is being disposed. That's a request message, response message. Okay, so look at this code and you can see how that's been laid out. Of course, you also want to make sure the code is clean and it's not like cluttered. So barring the public method, everything, all the other methods should be readable as well. Now I'm going to show you the version 2 of the gateway that uses the service agent. So let me also just show you the thing here. So what I'm talking about is, this is the fixed version, nothing wrong with it. But the version 2 uses the service agent. So if you want to look at the version 2, you'll see that it actually uses the service agent to do some of the HTTP parts of things. This is not a requirement. It's just if you're using multiple services in a system, which is pretty common these days, then rather than repeating the whole HTTP things in every gateway, the best thing to do is then abstract that HTTP part to nuances. How do I send stuff as JSON, receive stuff as JSON, send things as HTML, receive as HTML, plain text, and so on? That commonality can be put into a service agent. I call it service agent HTTP because it's an HTTP-based service agent. Service agents could have any protocol. And then the gateway is just working with its bare minimum stuff. So let's look at that. So the version 2 similar constructor, nothing different there, except now it's got a service agent also, and the service agent, not also, I don't mean also, there's no, instead of HTTP client, it's service agent, and the service agent is also disposable because of the HTTP client being disposable. And so then in the dispose method, you got to do that as well. Right? I said disposable is like a virus going upstream. Create work order, that's the only public method here. It says login, create work order internal. That method is also called create work order, and logout. That's it. Right? Simpler, cleaner. These the methods in here don't even know there's an HTTP client. It doesn't know what the protocol is. It doesn't know what HTTP client is. It's simply saying, this is how I want things done. I'm going to package up the data in a certain way. I expect the data coming back to me in a certain way. And then the service agent that's dealing with purely HTTP things doesn't understand the business. It only understands HTTP. And so you can't get it to do your businessy things. That's what the gateway does. There's a difficult line to draw between the gateway and the service agent, because the gateway is implying that I know what I need, how to marry bridge the gap between the business side and the service side, but I don't know about the protocol parts of the service. The service agent says I know all about the protocol, but I don't know anything about what you need from a business standpoint. So you have to make sure each one is talking the language that they're supposed to understand. It's not an easy line to draw, but you'll see that, if you look at the service agent thing. That's that. So this has been a long video. The source code is there. I hope you enjoyed the source code as well. But here's what we've learned so far. Code reviews are tough, right? You got to find the bugs. You got to find the maintainability issue. As a code reviewer, as a programmer, you got to do your best to not have bugs, not have maintainability issues. It's a responsibility that both people or both parties share. Writing clean, good code is really hard. But the benefits or the payback is huge, right? And once it becomes a habit, it just becomes normal. You don't spend any more time writing clean code, right? Don't go thinking this is just a prototype. Next, that prototype code has landed itself in production, right? That's not what you want. So pay attention, form good habits. If you don't know what I'm talking about with regards to PWI or programming with intent, I'll put up my playlist up here. Please take a look at that, because it is key. But I hope you enjoyed this video from the perspective that that code looks very simple. I mean, you would have never thought that code had 50 odd issues to it, right? Maybe you don't agree with some of them, but you can't say there's nothing wrong. There are bugs. There are definitely maintainability issues, and there are definitely design issues, right? But you don't know that. You couldn't possibly imagine from a little piece of code like that, there are 50 odd issues with it. 50 places in which there are issues with it. It's huge, right? So please download the code. Let me have your comments. Let me tell me, the bug. The bug needs to be fixed. Now I'll tell you what the fix for the bug is. So if you want to kind of not hear that part, then I shall say goodbye to you right now. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. But I'm going to go back and show those who want to look at the issue in case you've already solved it or want to know the answer. Okay. Here's the deal. For the original project, it's easier to look at the original project and find the problem, right? So if you look at the original source code here. The basic issue is this. The accept header. What you're saying when you do that, you're saying is to the service, you're calling, I accept JSON in this case. The content type is saying, I'm sending you JSON, but the accept header is saying, I want or accept JSON. So the service is responding with JSON, all right? And what you're doing here, this is not arranged correctly, this code. That's why I was a bit confused. Like, what the heck? What's it doing there? And then doing a logout, then doing this is just ridiculous. Anyway, read a string. So you're reading it as a string. The service is sending you JSON, so put double quotes around it. And what you're seeing is a string. So this is the fix to that. Let me see show you the fix. Let me make sure this project is set up correctly. Let me turn that off. Okay. Let me run. So I'll show you the problem once again first. I haven't fixed it. Okay, so this is the problem, right? The double quotes are incorrect. The data is fine. It's the stuff, the fact that there's double quotes, that's incorrect. So the fix to that would be to not read this as string or two ways. One is don't say I accept JSON, because that doesn't make sense. You're not. So if you did that, then you will find that the strings, the double quotes disappear, right? And that's the correct output. You don't want the double quotes. That's the fix. The other way to fix it would be to then use the read as extension method, read as async, and give it the type, and the type would be string. So I won't do that here, but that's what the solution would be. I could show you here in this the new version. So the new version also has got the same bug, and I left that intentionally. So let's start this and turn this off. Okay, so on the new version here, on the services, the gateway. So this gateway here has got the post async. Yeah, so there. This is doing a read as string async, but if I did just read as async, okay, let's foresee that the issue is not going to want to do some magic. So now I'm going to run this, so you can see that this new version also has a issue. Right, you see double quotes there, right? So if I now were to fix this in the create work order piece here, over there I say it's the work order ID. So I'm going to say read as async. Oops, read as async. And that I'm going to say is a string, is not like a DT or something, right? That's taken. So that's all I've done. So I'm saying I'll continue to send that except header of application JSON is going to come back to me as JSON, but over here I'm going to, instead of assuming it's a string, which is the problem, I would kind of convert this JSON to a string. And if I would run this application here, there, and that fixes that as well, right? So there's no double quotes here. So this is two fixes to it, depending on what's going on in your application. If the service is going to be a JSON service, then of course it's going to be responding to in JSON. That means you would also say accept JSON. If the service is not only a JSON service, is going to respond to you in some cases strings, in some cases JSON. Then, so it depends on how the fix is. Is the fix to say I don't accept JSON, or is the fix to say I want to read data as JSON? Right? That's the difference. All right. That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed yourselves. I hope you learned a few things. If you have, please give me a thumbs up, and I will see you next time.